Coming up on Levin TV, the left and Trump haters are getting dangerous.
They're not going to be able to go to a restaurant.
Apology! Shame!
They're not going to be able to stop at a gas station.
Shame! Shame!
The people are going to turn on them.
Poetic justice.
Is somebody going to get hurt?
Shame on you! Shame on you!
It all starts now.
This is where freedom rings.
If you believe in America, if you believe in the Constitution empowers us. It's a new day. America's back. America's back, and America's going to get strong again. We're going to defend America, and we're going to defend our interests.
Liberty's voice, Levin TV.
Hello, America. I'm Mark Levin. This is Levin TV on CRTV.com. Well, it's getting ugly out there, and the left is getting incredibly violent and confrontational. They've always been that way, you know. If you remember the riots in the 1960s, and many of you don't, you know, little things like burning down buildings and taking over administration buildings at colleges and stuff like that. You remember Antifa last year, over the summer actually, last summer, the things they were doing, and most of the media kept their mouths shut for a period of time and then eventually said, hey, you know what, they're pretty violent. And of course, the hardcore communist left has always been violent. So this is in their DNA, this is in their veins, while they run around and pretend they're for peace and the little children and compassion and so forth. Anyway, Maxine Waters, she's a nut job. May I say nut job? May I? Yeah, I think I will. Maxine Waters is a nut job. She and her husband live very, very well. They're very wealthy. And yet she acts like America is this horrible, horrible place. And, of course, she detests Donald Trump. And she is particularly vile. And she said a few things the other day, and I want you to listen to this, because people are talking about it and writing about it. I want you to actually hear it. Let's check it out. MSLSD, go.
I'm going to put up a list here of Democratic colleagues of yours who've called for the resignation of Kristen Nielsen, the Secretary of Homeland Security, in light of what we've seen happen over these last few days. Are you going to add your name to those ranks? Do you think she should step aside?
Oh, absolutely. She should step aside. You know, I have no sympathy for these people that are in this administration who, you know it's wrong what they're doing on so many fronts, but they tend to.
So the Secretary of DHS should resign because she's enforcing the law. How pathetic is this? Very pathetic. So she should resign. What? And Trump should appoint what? Kamala Harris, who believes in open borders, and the people who come here illegally should get an immediate pathway to citizenship so they can vote Democrat? I mean, what is this, a joke? Go ahead.
Not want to confront this president or even leave, but they know what they're doing is wrong. And I want to tell you, for these members of his cabinet who remain and try to defend him, they're not going to be able to go to a restaurant. They're not going to be able to stop at a gas station. They're not going to be able to shop at a department store. The people are going to turn on them. They're going to protest. They're going to absolutely harass them until they decide that they're going to tell the president, no, I can't hang with you. This is wrong. This is unconscionable. We can't keep doing this to children.
And indeed, we saw the White House Press Secretary Sarah Huckabee Sanders turned away from a restaurant in Lexington, Virginia yesterday because of her affiliation with the president. Let me ask you lastly here about policy. You're on House Financial Services. You keep track of what policy is being put.
Notice this clown on the left. He's like a robot, isn't he? So she just says, we're going to harass these people where they eat, where they live, where they shop. They're not going to be able to go out. So many words and so forth. And so, right over his head. So Maxine Waters is basically calling for violence. That's what she's calling for. To interrupt the lives of individuals who are serving this president. She's a member of Congress. She's being denounced by some today. She should be expelled. She should be expelled from the United States House of Representatives, but she won't be. But the left is very dangerous and very violent. You remember the shooting of Steve Scalise, and it's this kind of rhetoric, this kind of propaganda. You got somebody with a loose screw or something, and they'll say, oh, wow, well, Maxine Waters says this, and we're talking about Trump being Hitler, and we got all these concentration camps and internment camps going on all over the country, and racists, you know, if they disagree with me, they're all racist. Trump is a racist, and Stephen Miller's a racist, and This Christine Nielsen's a racist, and now we know Huckabee, they tell us, is a racist, and who else? David Bossi's a racist. All these racists. So what do you do when you're confronting Hitler and concentration camps and racists and so forth and so on? Well, you might take up arms. That's why this kind of propaganda is really way over the top. Go ahead.
In place by the White House. Let me broaden that, though. Talking with my colleague Cal Perry, who's down at the border in Tornillo, Texas, the site of one of these tent cities, if you can call it that, internment camp, detention facilities. You pick your term for it.
He said for it. The internment camp, tent city. I don't know. Let's see, tent city or internment camp, aren't they a little different? I don't know. This jerk with the weird glasses here. This jerk, I don't know his background. I don't even know his name. They flop these fools on cable TV all the time. Call it internment camp, call it a tent city, call it whatever you want. I call you a moron. Go ahead.
As it's becoming clear, there is no plan. How emblematic is that of the way this administration is approaching policy generally?
Well, you know, this president just wakes up in the morning and tweets policy. He does not work with his experts. He does not work with his personnel. He is creating public policy on his own, by himself, in whatever way he decides it should go in the morning when he wakes up. This is outrageous. He is absolutely being destructive to this country. I don't know why people are not screaming.
What the hell is she even talking about? Rambling on like a buffoon. May I use the word buffoon? Yes, I'll use the word buffoon. Go ahead.
In the streets about what we're experiencing with this president. I have said all along, he is a dishonorable man. He's a despicable human being. He has no good values. He's dangerous. He does not care about our democracy.
Now stop. You talk about a president like this, and there are kooks out there? I mean, this is really poison. Go ahead.
Aligned himself with Putin, who has undermined our democracy. He loves the strong men and the dictators of the world. That's who he's looking to be friends with, because he's just like them, and he wants to be just like them.
Really? I thought it was Obama who was carrying favor with the Castro boys and with the Islamo-Nazi regime in Tehran, and was leaning over to the then president of Russia saying, we'll work things out after the election, and sold out to the Red Chinese, and on and on and on. I thought it was Obama who was legislating from the Oval Office with executive fiats like a dictator. I guess I got them confused. Go ahead.
To run this country like them, and we've got to push back, and we've got to say no. I, for example, have stepped way out there. I said this man needs to be...
You are way out there every time you take a step, because you're a nut. Go ahead.
Impeached. I know a lot of people think we're not ready to say that. Some people have said a long time ago that he would become presidential. He will never be presidential.
I'll tell you what. They say this about, that's not for her. They say this about Trump all the time. I think she is mentally ill. What do you think about that? I think she's a crackpot. But then again, there's so many left-wing Democrats that sound like her. I think they have a whole insane asylum, if you ask me, but they really do. Now, speaking of, the perfect insane asylum is MSLSD, a.k.a. MSNBC, and Joe Scarborough, who really has become a loathsome, detestable individual, hasn't he? And he slams Trump. Now listen to this. Again, I've talked about this in the distant past. What worries me about their rhetoric about this president, they could get this man killed. I'm quite serious about this. The way they talk about him, the comparisons they make about him with Hitler, with dictators, that he's a liar, that he's destroying America, that he's a racist and so on. This is heavy, heavy demagogic propaganda. And it is day in and day out and day in and day out, and you have a person that's not exactly right up in the noggin, and they take this stuff to heart. Absolutely irresponsible. And the media give this voice, particularly MSNBC and CNN. And if something does happen to this president, MSNBC, CNN, all these people, these clownish politicians, these clownish media types, the blood is on their hands. Let's make no mistake about it. I certainly hope that nothing of this sort ever happens. But they're raising the temperature so high, the propaganda is so unmoored from reality, that they're going to work people up, some person, into a frenzy, and we could have a horrific problem here on our hands. So here is Scarborough, just a few days ago, I believe it was Friday, on his loathsome program. Go ahead.
You could talk again about him denying any knowledge of David Duke or the Ku Klux Klan. You could go through 2 years where people supporting Donald Trump are not supporting Donald Trump. Cannot say, oh, I'm just supporting him because he's giving him hell in Washington. No, he's been openly racist, just like we said back in December of 2015, openly racist. And if you support him, then you're supporting that, and you are that. It's that simple.
Okay,
and that's
folks,
what we've come
if
to
you
now.
support Donald Trump, you're a racist. It's that simple, says Joe Scarborough. Now, Joe Scarborough doesn't know you. He doesn't know any of it. He's never met you. In his district, where he used to run in Florida, I guess the people who voted for both Joe Scarborough and then more recently Donald Trump, I guess they were racist too. To say that anyone who's voted for Donald Trump is a racist, I mean, again, a guy like that remains on TV. He should be yanked. He should be yanked. Mark, are you against free speech? I'm not the government. I'm telling you, this guy is a crackpot. He can't say enough that's more radical and more over the edge. And he's doing it each and every day now. So the president is a racist. He told us this in December 2015, and anyone who votes for the president is a racist. This is a very dangerous man with the kind of propaganda he's spewing. Go ahead.
And if you support Donald Trump after this, Yamiche, it's very clear that you can't just say, oh, you know what, the economy's moved on, and I'm just sort of disaffected, and neither side works, and I support Donald Trump. But the last line of my column in the Washington Post, following up on what Donnie Deutsch said, is that so many Republicans still support this depraved man, and his malignant movement could actually be the most damning element of this tragic...
You know, the weirdest thing is when a guy reads his own column. About a decade ago, I was having a debate with Alan Dershowitz, the conservatives' newest favorite law professor, ex-law professor. And I was on, it was MSNBC at the time, but it wasn't the same MSNBC. It was quite different than it is today. And I believe John Gibson was the host back then. And I was debating Dershowitz, I believe, on the independent counsel statute. And as I recall, I was arguing that it was unconstitutional, but in any event, he made an assertion, and I said, can he cite anybody who backs that up? So he cited himself. And I kind of mocked him, and he was very upset about it. Here's a guy reading his own article. Now, I don't mind you reading your own article if you want to tell somebody what you think, read a book. I don't know that he's actually written a book. He has a book or two with his name on it. In order to provide information or learning or something interesting or so forth. But to quote your own article, which is basically just a slam on the President of the United States, shows you what a narcissist and egomaniac this fool is, Joe Scarborough. Now, just to show you how bad it's getting, thanks to people like him, we have a piece, CBS News, from yesterday. The acting Deputy Secretary of Homeland Security warned employees Saturday, quote, that there may be a heightened threat against them, against people who work for Homeland Security. According to a memo obtained by CBS News, the warning comes amid the increasing fury over the Trump administration's zero-tolerance immigration policy. The assessment is based on specific and credible threats that have been levied against certain DHS employees and a sharp increase in the overall number of general threats against DHS employees, although the veracity of each threat varies, says the message from Claire Grady. In addition, over the last few days, thousands of employees have had their personally identifiable information publicly released on social media. Isn't it true that around 9,000 addresses of ICE employees have been leaked? Think about that. Their addresses have been put out there. We're talking about separating children from their parents. We've talked about this now, for more than a week. I've gone through the background, through the history of this and so forth, that this was actually started decades before. And this is all because the Democrat Party wanting citizenship for illegal aliens. The Democrat Party not wanting to secure the border. The Democrat Party riling up its base for the midterm elections. It is a horrendous thing. It really is, and it's the propaganda is unbelievable. You've seen this Kirstjen Nielsen. She's the secretary of DHS, and what happened to her just last week at a Mexican restaurant. Apparently, she's not allowed to go to a Mexican restaurant, according to left-wing commentators, because she believes in securing the border. Why, is she anti-Mexican? No. Does she believe Mexican individuals shouldn't come in here legally? No. She believes in securing the border. So now she's anti-Mexican and shouldn't be able to eat at a Mexican restaurant. And so they're targeting her. Take a look. Go.
Secretary Nielsen, how dare you spend your evening here eating dinner as you're complicit in the separation and deportation of over 10,000 children separated from their parents? How can you enjoy a Mexican dinner as you're deporting and imprisoning tens of thousands of people who come here seeking asylum in the United States? We call on you to end family separation and abolish ICE!
Abolish ICE! Abolish ICE! Abolish ICE!
Abolish ICE!
Shame! 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 Shame!
Shame! Shame! Shame! Shame!
That's some socialist workers group. And one of those individuals, a young lady, works for the Department of Justice, as we pointed out the other day. Then they protested her home a few days later, and they were yelling, "No justice, no sleep." Let's check that one out. Go ahead. Of course, they can't play any audio of little babies being aborted at 8 months and 29 days, and what happens to them. They're not playing any of those Planned Parenthood videos, those undercover videos, are they? Anyway, go ahead.
Guys from everywhere, just
Shame! 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 Shame!
history will remember you. History will judge you. You belong in The Hague. You belong in The Hague.
First of all, that guy's got a foreign accent. No offense. You belong in The Hague. Sounds like he's from Britain. You belong in The Hague. You belong in The Hague. Go ahead.
Gay Nazi. You belong in The Hague. Shame. Shame. Shame.
Shame! Shame! Shame!
Now, this is a left-wing, site? Tarot Politics. Go ahead.
Shame! 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 Shame!
Shame. Shame.
Are there 2 guys there? 3 guys there? Something like that. Then, of course, the president's spokesperson, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, she goes off to have dinner a couple hours outside of Washington, D.C., in a little town in Virginia, which happens to be owned by a left-winger who came from New York. And the staff sees her there, we're told, and they're very troubled by it. And some of them are gay, some of them are whatever it is, according to the Washington Post story, and they call the owner. What should we do? The owner says, well, we had a vote. The vote was to kick them out. And so let's take a look at this. Sarah Sanders tweeted out the following. Last night I was told by the owner of Red Hen in Lexington, Virginia, to leave because I work for the president, and I politely left. Her actions say far more about her than about me. I always do my best to treat people, including those I disagree with, respectfully, and will continue to do so. But you see, there's a campaign to harass individuals that work in the Trump administration, and it's getting very, very nasty out there. Now let's take a look at the owner's notes on this little note card she has. Check website, only prints 1 copy, the printer they're having a little issue with, Pellegrino, And then, of course, 86 Sarah Huckabee Sanders. In other words, we got rid of Sarah Huckabee Sanders. Isn't that lovely? Now, there's been some reaction to this little Red Hen restaurant. People have gone on site, places like Yelp and so forth, and have given them 1 star, thumbs down, you name it. Of course, the left pours in there and tries to build them up. But let's take a look at this brief overview of the situation. Go ahead.
1 and 5-star reviews filled the Virginia Red Hen restaurant's Facebook and Yelp pages after a server at the Lexington restaurant posted on Facebook saying, quote, "I just served Sarah Huckabee Sanders for a total of 2 minutes before my owner kicked her out, along with 7 of her family members." Sanders also tweeted about being refused service moments later.
It's not a sign of intolerance. What they're doing is intolerance.
Oh.
It's called justice, you know?
Yeah.
Poetic justice.
Well,
that's exactly
poetic
what
justice,
it was.
sure.
While some are applauding the restaurant for pushing back against the Trump administration, others are chastising the restaurant owner for being intolerant.
So what are we going to have? Restaurants for Republicans and then restaurants for Democrats? Is that about it? I mean, and of course the left keeps talking about about Donald Trump and how he's poisoned our language and on and on and on. They've lost their damn minds. So as far as I'm concerned, this restaurant owner, she can go broke. I mean, my parents had a little store in a place called Jenkintown for years. It was a retail store. They didn't play politics at all. Politics didn't come in and out of their store. We would talk at the dinner table, the breakfast table. We might even talk if nobody was in the store, but if somebody comes in the store, you do business. There used to be something called class. The left has no class. And so this is part of the problem. You heard the doofuses in the street there. Well, this is, you know, who's the one discriminating against whom and so forth. And why? Because you want to enforce federal immigration law? Because people who come here illegally should not come here illegally and should not be United States citizens when it's all said and done? Because you don't buy the socialist agenda redistributing wealth? Because you don't believe in undermining the military or police officers? So there's something wrong with you? I mean, you heard Scarborough earlier on. We're all racists now because he has deigned us all racists. This nobody who runs to the Hamptons every weekend now deigns us all racists. Now, Scarborough and the little clown group that he organizes on this MSLSD, they decided to have a little discussion about the restaurant. And let's see how that went. Go.
The problem that Sarah Sanders had over the weekend, which is a absolutely legitimate problem, but who cares?
But it goes back to the anger over plenty of Americans know that they are being lied to constantly.
This is a former aide in the Bush 43 White House, a never Trumper. And this is how they conduct themselves. Go ahead.
And they want the truth. And should someone who lies...
So in other words, if somebody thought George W. Bush lied about weapons of destruction in Iraq, I don't think he did, but let's say they did. There's millions who did. He shouldn't have been invited to any restaurants. He should be thrown out, the whole Bush family. And let us recall this separating parents from children. It didn't start with Trump. Didn't start with Obama. It really didn't even start with George W. Bush. It started with Bill Clinton and a court order in 1997. But they all did it because how else can you organize this? Okay, everybody's together, now everybody's detained. But this is really propaganda gone media. That's pretty much what it is. Go ahead.
And enables the president's lies be openly welcomed in society wherever they please, should they face any kind of social or societal pressure. I'm increasingly weighing towards yes, even though I'm all about civility, but I do think that there are choices.
You should be able to throw a mother and 7 people from their family out of a restaurant, because I'm all about civility, you know. But I'm starting to lean against it. And this guy, of course, Richard Haas, he's ready to jump. This guy, foreign policy guy, but he knows everything. The guy on the left is just another schnook. Go ahead.
And Sarah Huckabee Sanders has made her choices, and she has decided to constantly give false information from that podium.
So now she gets a scarlet letter on her forehead because Dimwit here has decided she constantly gives false information. I mean, it's appalling. Now we have an attorney general in Florida whose name is Pam Bondi. You may have heard of her. Trump supporter. She used to be attacked and defamed. And let's look at this. I mean, this is pretty horrendous. It's very short. She's confronted after a Mr. Rogers documentary in Florida. All right, go ahead.
What would Mr. Rogers think about you and your legacy in Florida? Taking away health insurance with people with pre-existing conditions, Sam Bondi. Shame on you! Shame on you! Shame on you!
She doesn't care.
Shame on you, Sam Bondi, and taking away health insurance with people with pre-existing conditions.
I heard her interviewed earlier today, and she was saying it was a lot worse than what you saw, that these people were in her face, right nose to nose, pointing at her, calling her names and her boyfriend names, the worst sort of names she said she can't repeat, and every one of them. And she's the Attorney General of Florida. And what has she done? She supports President Trump. I'm telling you, this is getting completely out of control at this point. Stephen Miller. Stephen Miller is an advisor to the President of the United States. He used to work on the staff of Jeff Sessions. He advises the President on a number of things, including immigration. And here's a piece in the Hill newspaper from last week. White House senior advisor Stephen Miller was called a fascist earlier this week while dining at a Mexican restaurant in Washington, D.C., according to the New York Post. The encounter took place on Sunday at Espita. I can't pronounce it. Why pretend? The Post reports that a patron of the restaurant called out Miller, an immigration hardliner. See, you're an immigration hardliner if you believe in upholding the immigration laws. You're a right-winger if you believe in upholding the Constitution. They have all their phrases down, don't they? And you're a racist if you don't agree with the left. It's disgusting. Over the Trump administration's zero-tolerance policy that separates migrant families caught crossing the border illegally. It's incredible. They never said a damn thing when Obama was doing something like this. Never. Hey, look, guys, whoever thought we'd be in a restaurant with a real-life fascist begging for money for new cages, a customer said to Miller, according to the Post. Miller reportedly did not respond to the hecklers. The incident occurred just a few days before activists similarly interrupted Homeland Security Secretary Kirstjen Nielsen's dinner at a Mexican restaurant, resulting in her leaving the restaurant. You see the pattern? This is organized and it's funded. The group repeatedly yelled shamed at Nielsen and end Texas concentration camps. Attorney General Jeff Sessions, and they go on to smear him about the zero-tolerance policy. Well, talk about zero tolerance. That's pretty much the left, isn't it? I don't know where this is going, but I don't like it. It's not very pretty. And I think it's probably going to get worse before it gets better. Somebody will get harmed, perhaps fatally so, and then we'll have a week worth of television. How did we get here? Look at the divisiveness. Look at these reporters. Look at Scarborough and Mika Brzezinski. Look at the guests that they have on. Listen to how these people talk. I mean, they are way out of control. And look at the guests that they pick to talk. Everybody's a racist. All of you are racists because you voted for Donald Trump. He's a racist. We learned over the weekend that according to Bill Kristol and others, because Mike Huckabee tweeted out a photo of this MS-13 gang and talking about Pelosi's constituents. Now he's been labeled a racist. Dave Bossie used a phrase that most people have used much of their lives, and then when you Google it, you do realize it has racist connotations to it. It doesn't mean people are even aware of it. He's since apologized, but now he's branded as a racist. So anybody who supports the president or voted for the president, they're branded as racist. I'm telling you, this is not going to end well. Hitler, concentration camps, internment camps. This is an agenda being pushed by the media, by the progressives in the media. And it's so dishonest. It's just, it's so out of whack. And there are nut jobs out there. All they need is a little bit of a nudge, and they will do things that are horrific. And we know who to hold accountable now. I'm telling you the truth. We know who to hold accountable. That's it.